Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? The voice of Senator John Kennedy resonated across the expanse of Senate Hearing Room 216, carrying a low rumble reminiscent of distant thunder rolling over the Louisiana bayou. It was a slow, measured cadence, deceptively tranquil, the specific kind of tone that tends to make the intelligent nervous, while rendering the foolish dangerously confident. Representative Ilhan Omar was poised to discover, quite rapidly, which of those categories she fell into. Her hand rested solemnly on the holy book, and the irony of the tableau was lost on no one in the gallery. A Muslim congresswoman swearing an oath, preparing to be questioned by a Southern Baptist constitutional scholar known for a photographic memory and the relentless instincts of a veteran prosecutor. The cameras were already fixated on the scene, with viewership numbers on C-SPAN climbing vertically. "I do," Omar replied, her voice steady, and her chin lifted in a posture of defiance. She had navigated these waters before, surviving countless cable news appearances, social media skirmishes, and relying on the solidarity of her political allies. She believed she understood how this theater operated. She was mistaken. Kennedy adjusted his glasses round, wire-rimmed frames that gave him the appearance of a humble country lawyer. But behind the lenses, his gaze was as sharp and cutting as broken glass. He placed a thick manila folder onto the mahogany desk. It was stuffed to capacity, its edges worn from use. Omar's eyes flickered toward the file for a brief second before darting away. "Ma'am, before we commence, I wish to make something crystal clear," Kennedy said, leaning forward as his Louisiana drawl thickened like molasses. "Back home, we have a saying, 'Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining.' Now, I expect straightforward answers today. Simple questions deserve simple answers. Can you do that for me?" The gallery seemed to collectively hold its breath as reporters leaned in closer. On the dais, Senator Josh Hawley offered a faint, inscrutable smile, while Senator Ted Cruz's pen hovered in anticipation over his legal pad. Omar's attorney whispered a quick counsel into her ear, and she nodded. "I will answer your questions, Senator," she stated, "but I will not be subjected to." Kennedy interrupted seamlessly. "Oh, you will be subjected to questions, ma'am. That is precisely why you are seated in that chair." Kennedy smiled, though the warmth did not reach his eyes. "That is how hearings function. We ask, and you answer. The Constitution has operated this way for 237 years, and I don't reckon we will be changing it today." He opened the manila folder, and papers cascaded out transcripts, financial records, photographs, and social media printouts, a prosecutorial avalanche organized with surgical precision. "Now then," Kennedy said, removing his glasses and folding them with deliberate care, "let us begin with September 11th, 2001. You recall that day, Representative Omar?" The room fell into a profound silence. This was not merely going to be a hearing, it was shaping up to be a reckoning. It was Tuesday morning, 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time, in the Hart Senate Office Building. The room carried the scent of old wood, floor polish, and nervous perspiration. Mahogany panels lined the walls like the ribs of a great beast, and American flags flanked the dais where 7 senators sat in high-backed leather chairs, their names etched on brass plaques, with staffers hovering behind them like anxious spirits. The witness table sat isolated in the center, equipped with a single microphone, a glass of water, and a chair that appeared comfortable but was not designed to be. Omar sat there now, her hijab perfectly arranged, gold hoop earrings catching the overhead lights, her outfit destined to be dissected on social media within the hour. Someone would inevitably note the designer brand adaptation, a symbol of progressive chic at taxpayer-funded prices. The press gallery was standing room only, packed with 3 rows of journalists, photographers, and cameramen, representing the trinity of cable news, each preparing to spin the events in different directions. C-SPAN cameras captured every angle, ensuring the footage would be clipped, memed, and weaponized across digital platforms before lunch. Behind Omar, in the public gallery, Gold Star families occupied the front row. They had lost sons, daughters, husbands, and wives on the 11th of September, 2001. And 23 years later, they still attended hearings like this, waiting for someone in power to articulate the right words, to show the proper respect, and to remember that the victims had names. Kennedy sat at the center of the dais, flanked by his allies. To his right sat Josh Hawley of Missouri, a former attorney general with Yale law credentials, ambitious and sharp. To his left was Ted Cruz of Texas, a Princeton and Harvard law graduate and former Supreme Court clerk who never forgot a word he read. Together, these three formed a formidable trident. They had coordinated their approach, divided the lines of questioning, and they had the receipts. On the Democratic side, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey appeared visibly uncomfortable, having drawn the short straw. His options were to defend Omar and alienate moderate voters, or abandon her and face the wrath of the progressive base and fundraising networks. He kept whispering to an aide, likely attempting to draft a statement that could thread that impossible needle. The air conditioning hummed, camera shutters clicked in rhythmic bursts, and someone in the gallery coughed. Omar adjusted her hijab and checked her phone one last time before an aide confiscated it. Her lawyer, a partner from a D.C. firm billing $800 an hour, leaned in for final instructions, but whatever he said ultimately wouldn't matter. Kennedy held the floor, Kennedy possessed the evidence, and Kennedy had been preparing for this moment for 3 months. The chairman, a placeholder Republican from Wyoming, banged the gavel to signal the commencement. The Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs will come to order. Today's hearing examines foreign influence in American institutions and the integrity of our immigration system. And we welcome Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota's 5th District as our witness. Welcome was a generous term under the circumstances. Kennedy did not wait for the formalities to conclude. He picked up a piece of paper, holding it to the light, so the cameras could catch the official seal at the top. Representative Omar, he began, his voice returning to that dangerous calm, on March 23, 2019, you delivered a speech to the Council on American-Islamic Relations. I have the transcript right here. You stated, and I quote, "CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties." End quote. He set the paper down, looked up, and made direct eye contact. Some people did something. He let each word land separately. "Ma'am, can you help me understand what you meant by that?" And just like that, the hearing truly began. The pause stretched for 3 seconds, then 5, the kind of silence that makes live television producers nervous and trial lawyers smile. Omar leaned toward her microphone. "Senator, that quote has been taken out of context repeatedly by right-wing media to, ma'am, I just read you the full sentence." "That was the context," Kennedy interrupted, his eyebrows raising slightly. "But please, enlighten me. What context makes 'some people did something' an appropriate description of September 11th? Behind Omar, a Gold Star widow gripped her husband's folded flag tighter. Her son had been a firefighter, a first responder at Tower 1, and they never found enough of him to fill a coffin. "I was speaking about the Muslim American community's experience after 9/11, Omar said, her voice gaining strength, about how we were collectively blamed for the actions of extremists, about how—" "I understand that," Kennedy held up a hand. "But the question remains. Nearly 3,000 Americans were murdered that day, murdered by 19 terrorists who hijacked 4 planes in a coordinated attack on our nation, and you described that as some people did something. He pulled out another document, this one larger, poster-sized, a chart filled with numbers and names. Let me read you some of those, some people, and something, if I may. His voice dropped an octave, the drawl evaporating into pure precision. Stephen Gerard Mulder, firefighter, age 33, left behind a wife and 2 daughters ages 4 and 6. Waleska Martinez Rivera, office worker, Tower 1, age 37, 5 months pregnant. Benjamin Keefe Clark, investment banker, age 39, called his wife from the 105th floor to tell her he loved her before the phone went dead. Mark Joseph Keogh Jr., at Boston College, age 21, on American Airlines, Flight 1, going home to see his mother. Kennedy paused to let the room breathe. I could keep going, ma'am. I have 2,977 more names. Would you like to hear them? Because these are the some people you referenced. And what they experienced wasn't something, it was murder, mass murder, an act of war. The room was absolutely still. Even the camera shutters had ceased clicking. Omar's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, and she shook her head slightly. Senator, I understand that my words caused pain, and I apologize if... Kennedy pounced. Ma'am, there is no if about it. Those words caused pain because they were dismissive of the greatest terrorist attack on American soil in our history. He leaned back and crossed his arms. Now, I am going to ask you something very simple, and I would appreciate a direct answer. Can you say the following sentence? September 11th, 2001, was an act of war committed by Islamic terrorists who murdered nearly 3,000 innocent Americans? The trap was perfect. Say it, and validate everything critics claimed about her previously minimizing terrorism. Refuse, and prove Kennedy's point about her dismissiveness. Omar took a sip of water, her hand trembling slightly, just enough for the close-up cameras to catch. Senator, I believe we need to have nuanced conversations about... That is not the sentence I asked you to say, ma'am. Kennedy's voice hardened. I asked you to state a simple fact. Was September 11th an act of war? Yes or no? It was a terrorist attack. Committed by whom? By Al-Qaeda terrorists. Who were motivated by what? Pause. By extremist ideology. What kind of extremist ideology? Representative. A longer pause followed. The lawyer was shaking his head. Now don't answer. Don't answer. I don't think it is productive to. Islamic extremism? Kennedy said it? For her? That is the answer. The 19 hijackers were motivated by radical Islamic extremism. That is not controversial, ma'am. That is just history. Osama bin Laden said it himself, multiple times on video, in his own words. He pulled out another paper and showed it to the camera. This is a letter from the families seated behind you, Gold Star families, people who lost loved ones on September 11th. They are asking you, respectfully, to acknowledge what happened that day in clear, unambiguous terms, to stop minimizing it, and to stop using it as a segue to talk about civil liberties. Kennedy's voice softened slightly, the most dangerous moment in any cross-examination when the prosecutor shows mercy before the decisive blow. Ma'am, I am 72 years old. I am from a generation that was taught to respect our elders, respect our flag, and respect those who have sacrificed. These families have sacrificed more than most of us can comprehend. The absolute least you could do is acknowledge their loss with the gravity it deserves. He paused, letting the camera linger on Omar's face, on her expression, on whatever calculation was occurring behind her eyes. Can you do that, Representative Omar? Or is some people did something as much respect as you are willing to give? The silence that followed was crushing. In the gallery, the Gold Star widow began to cry quietly, her shoulders shaking. A photographer caught the moment. That image would likely be on the front page of the New York Post tomorrow. Omar makes 9/11 widow cry. Cory Booker shifted uncomfortably, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. A staffer passed him a note, which he crumpled without reading. Ted Cruz was taking notes, while Hawley watched Omar like a hawk, watching a wounded rabbit. The news chyron updated. Kennedy grills Omar on September 11. Comments. Omar finally spoke. Senator, I have the deepest respect for anyone who lost someone on September 11th. That day was a tragedy. It was horrific, and we should never forget it. But you already did forget it, ma'am. Kennedy's response was instant. When you reduced it to some people did something, you forgot it. When you used it as a rhetorical device to talk about Muslim civil liberties, you forgot it. When you couldn't bring yourself to say Islamic terrorism, you forgot it. He closed the folder in front of him. That manila one was still mostly full, with 7 more rounds to go. I will take your non-answer as an answer, Representative. Let's move on. Kennedy pulled out a new set of documents. These bore Minnesota state seals, Department of Health vital records, the kind of paperwork that does not lie because falsifying it is a felony. Representative Omar, let's talk about your family for a moment. His tone shifted, becoming less preacher and more detective. You arrived in the United States as a refugee from Somalia in 1995, correct? Yes. Omar's guard was up now. She knew what was coming. And you came with your family. Your father, Nur Omar Mohammed. Your siblings, settled in Minneapolis. Correct? Yes. Good. Good. Kennedy flipped through the papers. Now, in 2002, you married a man named Ahmed Hirsi. Legal marriage? Pause. It was a faith-based marriage, not legal. Ah, faith-based. Kennedy nodded. So, no official marriage license filed with the state? No, but you had 2 children together in 2003 and 2006? Yes. And his name is on their birth certificates as father? Yes. Okay. So, 2009, you legally divorced Ahmed Hirsi? Wait. No. Kennedy stopped, frowning at the paper. You couldn't legally divorce him because you were never legally married. My mistake. He looked up, feigning innocence. So, in 2009, you legally married a different man, Ahmed Nur Said Elmi, had a wedding, filed the license, made it official with the state of Minnesota. Correct? Omar's lawyer leaned forward and whispered urgently. Omar nodded. Yes, I married Ahmed Elmi in 2009. Thank you for confirming that. Kennedy pulled out another document and held it up. This is the marriage license filed in Hennepin County. Your signature, his signature, all legal and proper. He set it down. Now, here is where I get confused, ma'am, and maybe you can help me out. Because I am just a simple country lawyer from Louisiana, and family trees can get mighty tangled. The gallery sensed blood in the water. Reporters leaned forward. Cameras zoomed in. According to multiple public records, birth certificates, immigration documents, school enrollment forms, Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi is your brother, biological brother. Same mother, same father. Is that accurate? The room exploded. Photographers surged forward, and Booker shot to his feet. The chairman banged his gavel. Order! Order! Omar's lawyer was on his feet too. Chairman, this line of questioning is based on unfounded rumors and conspiracy theories. Sit down, counselor. Kennedy didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Your client is a witness, not a defendant. Yet, she can answer the question or invoke the Fifth Amendment. Her choice. He turned back to Omar and waited. That allegation has been thoroughly debunked, Omar said, her voice shaking slightly with anger. Or, perhaps, fear. It was hard to tell which. It is a racist smear designed to— Ma'am, I didn't ask about allegations. I asked about public records. Kennedy held up another paper. This is Ahmed Elmi's immigration file, I-485 application for permanent residence, filed in 2011, sponsored by you, his wife. He flipped to the next page. This is a secondary school transcript from Somalia. Ahmed Nur Said Elmi. Father listed as Nur Said. Mother listed as— He squinted. I apologize. My Somali pronunciation is terrible, but it is the same mother listed on your school records. Your father's name is also Nur Said. Actually, your full legal name is Ilhan Abdullahi Omar. But before you married Ahmed Hirsi in 2002, your legal name was Ilhan Nur Said. Nur Said was your father's name, which makes you Ilhan Nur Said, which makes Ahmed Nur Said Elmi your brother. He set the papers down gently, as if they were grenades. Now, I am not a genealogist, but that is an awful lot of coincidences. Omar's face had gone pale, or maybe it was the lighting. I have addressed this repeatedly, she said, her voice tight. These are baseless claims made by conspiracy theorists who— Then let us clear it up right now. Kennedy reached under his desk and pulled out a small white medical box, the kind that holds test tubes. This is a DNA test kit. 2, 3 and me. Very popular, very accurate. If Ahmed Elmi is not your brother, this will prove it definitively. No more questions. No more allegations. He held it up to the camera. Let America see it. I have one for you, one for him. We can have results in 48 hours. Will you take it, Representative Omar? It was the legal definition of a decisive maneuver. Omar's lawyer was shaking his head vigorously, mouthing, No, no, no. Senator, I am not going to dignify this racist. Racist? Kennedy's eyebrows shot up. Ma'am, DNA doesn't have a race. It is science. Pure science. If he is not your brother, the test will show it. If you are telling the truth, you should want to take it. Pause. Unless you are not telling the truth. Omar stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I will not be subjected to this harassment. Sit down, Representative. The chairman's voice, not Kennedy's, commanded the room. That was important. The authority came from above. This wasn't partisan theatrics. This was institutional process. Omar sat slowly. Kennedy continued, his voice calm again. Let me be clear about why this matters. If you married your brother to commit immigration fraud to get him citizenship he wasn't entitled to, that is a federal felony. Multiple felonies, actually. He started counting on his fingers. Marriage fraud, immigration fraud, perjury on federal forms, tax fraud, because I'll get to that in a moment. These aren't small crimes, ma'am. These are deportable offenses, even for citizens. Denaturalization happens when citizenship was obtained through fraud. He leaned forward, so I will ask again. Will you take the DNA test? No. One word. Flat. Final. No. Kennedy repeated. You will not take a simple test that would immediately clear your name and vindicate you completely? No. Noted. Kennedy made a show of writing it down. Let the record reflect that Representative Omar refused to take a DNA test to disprove allegations of immigration fraud. He moved to the next set of papers. Let's talk about the tax implications. In 2014 and 2015, you filed joint tax returns with Ahmed Hirsi, the man you weren't legally married to. Meanwhile, You were still legally married to Ahmed Elmi. Is that correct? Silence. I will take your silence as confirmation. Now, filing joint returns while not legally married, that is tax fraud. Federal crime. The IRS gets very grumpy about that. He pulled out yet another document. In fact, the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board already fined you $3,500 for using campaign funds to pay your personal lawyer to handle your divorce from Ahmed Elmi. Small fine for a big problem, wouldn't you say? Omar was staring at the table now. Not at Kennedy, not at the cameras, just down. Here is what I think happened, ma'am, and you tell me if I am wrong. Kennedy's voice was almost gentle now, sympathetic, the way a priest hears confession. I think Ahmed Elmi wanted to come to America. I think marrying you, his sister, an American citizen, was the easiest path. I think you went along with it. I think it worked. And I think now, years later, you are in Congress, under scrutiny, and this whole thing is very inconvenient. He leaned back. The problem is, if I am right, you committed multiple federal felonies, and if I am wrong, a simple DNA test proves it. But you won't take the test. He spread his hands. So, what am I supposed to conclude? The question hung in the air like tear gas. Cory Booker tried to salvage the moment. Mr. Chairman, I think we have spent enough time on unsubstantiated. Senator Booker, your objection is noted. The chairman didn't sound sympathetic. Senator Kennedy, do you have additional questions on this topic? Just one more. Kennedy looked at Omar. Do you believe you are above the law, Representative? No. Then prove it. Take the test. I am not going to. Then this committee will refer the matter to the Justice Department for investigation. Immigration fraud, tax fraud, perjury. Let them sort it out. He closed that section of the folder. Moving on. But the damage was done. Fox News had the clip. Conservative media had the soundbite. Omar refuses DNA test. That would run for weeks. In the gallery, someone was already tweeting. The hashtag number DNA test was trending within 90 seconds. Kennedy picked up his next set of papers. 3 rounds down, 4 to go, and he was just getting started. Let's talk about your husband, Kennedy said, as casually as if he were asking about the weather. Your current husband, Tim Minette. Tell me about him. Omar's expression tightened. This was personal now, not just politics, not just immigration law. This was her life. Tim is a political consultant. He runs a firm called E Street Group. Yes, he does. Kennedy pulled out a spreadsheet, rows and columns with numbers highlighted in yellow. And your campaign has paid his firm quite a bit of money, hasn't it? For legitimate consulting services. Kennedy studied the spreadsheet. Let's quantify quite a bit. According to Federal Election Commission filings, which are public record, by the way, anyone can look these up. Your campaign has paid E Street Group $2.8 million since 2019. He looked up. $2.8 million. To your husband's firm, while he was your husband. Actually, let me back up. When did you start the affair with Mr. Minette? Omar's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection, Mr. Chairman. This is completely inappropriate. Overruled. The chairman looked almost bored. The witness's financial relationship with a vendor is relevant to campaign finance questions. Sit down. Kennedy waited, patient as a spider. I don't know what you are talking about, Omar said. You don't? Kennedy's eyebrows went up. Ma'am, Mr. Minette's ex-wife filed for divorce in August 2019. In the filing, she cited your affair with her husband as the cause. That is public record, too. Court documents. Would you like me to read from them? He didn't wait for an answer, pulling out another paper. Quote, the parties physically separated on or about April 7, 2019, when defendant told plaintiff that he was romantically involved with and in love with another woman, Ilhan Omar. April 2013. That is when you started paying his firm massive amounts of money. Interesting timing. He pulled up a chart and displayed it on the room. Screens a timeline of payments to E Street Group grafted against the timeline of the affair. April 2019, first payment of $50,000. May, libel $75,000. June, $100,000. July, $150,000. The amounts kept increasing, almost like you were paying him for something other than consulting. Omar's face was flushed anger or embarrassment, maybe both. We had a professional relationship that became personal. Oh? It became personal? All right. Kennedy pulled out another document. This is a campaign finance complaint filed by a watchdog group. They alleged that you used campaign funds to pay your boyfriend, now husband, for personal travel, romantic getaways, fancy hotels. He started reading from the complaint. 4 Seasons in Los Angeles, Ritz-Carlton in Philadelphia, Street Regis in New York. Not exactly best Western budgets, ma'am. Your campaign paid for all of these through E Street Group. Another spreadsheet appeared showing hotel receipts. 4 Seasons, Los Angeles. 2 nights. Cost $850 per night. $1,700 total. Charged to campaign as strategy consulting session. Kennedy looked up. Ma'am, I've been in politics 40 years. I've had a lot of strategy consulting sessions. None of them required the 4 Seasons. Laughter rippled from the gallery. The chairman didn't gavel it down. Even he was smiling slightly. Street Regis, New York. 3 nights. Presidential suite. $1,200 per night. $3,600 total. Campaign expense. Donor outreach coordination. Kennedy shook his head. The presidential suite for donor outreach? Were the donors in the suite with you, or? More laughter. Omar looked like she wanted to disappear. These are legitimate expenses, her lawyer tried to interject. Are they? Kennedy pulled out more receipts. First-class plane tickets. Business class to London. Campaign paying for it all through E Street Group. Mr. Minette billing for consulting, while you two were billing taxpayers for luxury travel. He laid out the receipts like a card dealer, showing a royal flush. Here is what I think happened, Representative. I think you fell in love with your consultant. I think you wanted to be with him. I think you used campaign funds to pay for it. And I think you disguised it as consulting fees, so it would look legal. Kennedy leaned forward. The problem is, it isn't legal. Using campaign funds for personal expenses is a federal crime. It doesn't matter if you call it consulting. It doesn't matter if you route it through a vendor. If it is personal, it is illegal. He pulled up a comparison chart. Let me show you something. This is the average amount congressional campaigns pay for consulting. Industry standard. About $50,000 per cycle. Maybe $100,000 for competitive races. Another column appeared. This is what you paid E Street Group. $2.8 million over 4 years. That is $700,000 per year, 14 times the industry average. He let that sink in. Now, either Mr. Minette is the greatest political consultant in history, which seems unlikely, given that your approval ratings in your district have dropped 12 points since you hired him, or you are paying him for something other than consulting. Kennedy pulled out another document, thicker and bound, looking official. This is a referral from the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board. They are asking the FEC to investigate whether you violated federal campaign finance law. The FEC has opened that investigation. It is ongoing. He set it down gently. So let me ask you directly. Did you use campaign funds to pay for personal expenses with Tim Minette? No. Did you travel with him on campaign-funded trips? Pause. Yes. When he was consulting on campaign strategy. In the presidential suite at the Street Regis? Longer pause. The accommodation was appropriate for the work being done. Ma'am, the only work being done in that suite had nothing to do with campaign strategy. Kennedy's voice hardened. You were having an affair. You were using donor money to fund it. That is theft. That is fraud. That is a betrayal of everyone who gave you $5 or $27 thinking it would go to your campaign, not your boyfriend's luxury hotel bills. He picked up another paper. And speaking of betrayal, let's talk about who you were betraying. You were married to Ahmed Hirsi at the time. Again, you had gotten back together after divorcing your brother, allegedly, and you had 2 children with him, but you were cheating on him with Tim Minette, whose wife was also being betrayed? Kennedy shook his head. 2 marriages destroyed, 2 families broken, all while billing taxpayers and donors for the privilege. He looked at Omar with something akin to pity. Do you understand why people call you a hypocrite, representative? You campaign on being a voice for the marginalized, for the oppressed, for the little guy. But you are living like a 1%er, flying first class, staying in presidential suites, funneling millions to your boyfriend's company. He pulled up one more chart. Average donor to your campaign. $27. That is the median contribution. Working people. People sending you their grocery money because they believe in you. They believe you are fighting for them. Another column appeared. Your hotel per night. $850. Your first-class flight to London. $5,000. Your payments to boyfriend's company. $2.8 million. Side by side, the contrast was devastating. You are not fighting for them, ma'am. You are fighting for yourself. And you are doing it with their money. Kennedy closed that section. But wait, there is more. Let's talk about where else your money goes. He wasn't done, not even close. Kennedy's voice changed, lowering to a quieter tone. Almost intimate, the most dangerous tone yet. Representative Omar, I want to read you some things you have written. Tweets mostly, social media, your own words. He pulled out a stack of papers, screenshots, printed out and highlighted. February 10th, 2019. You tweeted, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," in reference to AIPAC and American support for Israel. Do you remember that tweet? Yes, I was talking about the influence of money in politics. Benjamins. 100 bills. You were saying American politicians support Israel because of Jewish money. That is what you meant, wasn't it? I was talking about lobbying. Jewish lobbying. Jewish money. Jewish influence. Kennedy set the tweet down. Representative, that is one of the oldest anti-Semitic tropes in history. Rich Jews controlling governments through money. It has been used to justify pogroms, expulsions, genocides, and you deployed it in a tweet. He pulled out another one. Is the 16th of November 2012. You tweeted, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Do you remember that one? Omar shifted uncomfortably. I was young. You were 30, old enough to know better. Kennedy pulled out another tweet. March 7th, 2019. You tweeted, I should not be expected to have allegiance to a foreign country. You were talking about Israel, suggesting that American Jews have dual loyalty, that they are more loyal to Israel than to America. He set the tweets down in a row, like evidence at a crime scene. These are anti-Semitic statements. Representative, not according to me. According to the Anti-Defamation League. According to the American Jewish Committee. According to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. He pulled out a resolution. This is House Resolution 183. March 7, 2019, titled Condemning Anti-Semitism as Hateful Expressions of Intolerance that are Contradictory to the Values that Define the People of the United States. It doesn't name you specifically, but everyone knew it was about you. Your own party had to pass a resolution condemning anti-Semitism because of your statements. Kennedy looked up. How did that vote go? Oh yes, 407 to 23. Overwhelmingly bipartisan condemnation. Even Nancy Pelosi, who defended you more times than I can count, voted for it. That is how bad your statements were. He pulled out another document, this one handwritten on Holocaust Memorial letterhead. This is a letter from a man named Samuel Goldberg. He is 94 years old. He survived Auschwitz, lost his entire family, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, 63 relatives total, murdered by Nazis who believed Jewish money controlled the world, who believed Jews had dual loyalty, who believed Jews were hypnotizing good Christian Germans. Kennedy's voice cracked slightly, just enough to notice. Mr. Goldberg wrote to you after your Benjamin's tweet. He asked you to understand how your words echoed the propaganda that led to his family's murder. He asked you, respectfully, gently, to reconsider your rhetoric. Kennedy held up the letter, showing it to the camera. You never responded to him, Representative. He is 94 years old, a Holocaust survivor, and you couldn't be bothered to write back. He set the letter down carefully, as if it were sacred. I am going to read from it. Not all of it, just a bit. Mr. Goldberg gave me permission. Kennedy pulled out reading glasses, put them on, and began to read. Dear Representative Omar, I am writing to you not as a political opponent, but as a witness to history. I saw where words like yours lead. I saw the cattle cars. I saw the gas chambers. I saw the crematoriums. I smelled the burning flesh of my mother and sisters, all because people believed that Jews controlled the world through money, that Jews were hypnotizing good Germans, that Jews had dual loyalty. Kennedy paused and removed his glasses. His eyes were moist. He goes on, but I think you get the point. The room was silent. Even Booker looked stricken. Kennedy pulled out more documents. The American Jewish Committee called your statements deeply offensive and hurtful. The Simon Wiesenthal Center said they traffic in anti-Semitic tropes. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum said they promote dangerous stereotypes. He laid them out like dominoes. Do you know who praised your statements? Do you know who thought they were great? He pulled out screenshots. Foreign media, Hamas, the terrorist organization. They praised you. Iranian state television. They praised you. David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the KKK. He said, you were the most important member of Congress. His words, not mine. Kennedy looked at Omar directly. When Hamas, Iran, and the KKK are your fan club, maybe, just maybe, you should reconsider your positions. He pulled out one final document. This is a letter from the Jewish Democratic Council of America. They are asking whether you should be removed from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. That isn't Republicans asking. That is Democrats. Jewish Democrats who are terrified of what you represent. Kennedy set everything down, all the tweets, all the letters, all the condemnations. Representative Omar, I am going to ask you something very simple. Do you believe your statements were anti-Semitic? No. I believe criticism of the Israeli government is not anti-Semitism. I didn't ask about the Israeli government. I asked about your statements, all about the Benjamins. Hypnotize the world. Dual loyalty. Were those anti-Semitic? Pause. I don't believe so. You don't believe so. Kennedy repeated it, letting it hang. Even though the ADL says so, even though the Holocaust Museum says so, even though a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor begged you to understand how your words echoed Nazi propaganda. You don't believe so. He leaned back. That is the problem, ma'am. You don't see it. You don't see how your words hurt. You don't see how they spread hatred. You don't see how they make Jewish Americans, your constituents, your colleagues, feel unsafe. Kennedy pulled out a news article. Since you have been in Congress, anti-Semitic hate crimes in America have increased 41%. Synagogue shootings, cemetery vandalizations, assaults. Not all your fault, of course not. But your rhetoric contributes. Your statements give cover to actual anti-Semites who think, even a congresswoman says it, so it must be okay. He set the article down. Do you feel any responsibility for that? Omar's jaw was tight. I fight all forms of bigotry, except your own. Kennedy's interruption was surgical. You fight bigotry unless it is coming from you. Then it is just criticism of Israel. Then it is just speaking truth to power. Then it is everyone else being too sensitive. He pulled off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Representative, I am from Louisiana. We have a complicated history with bigotry. Took us too long to learn. Took us too long to change. But we learned. We changed because people called us out. People held us accountable. He looked at her directly. That is what I am doing now. Calling you out. Holding you accountable. Your statements are anti-Semitic. They hurt people. They spread hate. And you need to stop. Pause. Will you stop? Omar opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her lawyer, and then back to Kennedy. I will continue to speak truth about. Then you won't stop. Kennedy cut her off. Noted, he moved to his next folder. The decisive arguments kept coming. Let's talk about student debt, Kennedy said, his voice shifting again, back to that folksy drawl, the reasonable country lawyer. You've talked a lot about your student loans, made it a big part of your story. The struggling immigrant, working her way through college, drowning in debt, can barely make payments. Sound about right? Omar nodded wearily. Yes? I have been open about my student debt. How much do you owe? About $70,000. $70,000. Kennedy nodded sympathetically. That is a lot of money. Real burden. I can see why it weighs on you. He pulled out his phone and started scrolling. I have been looking at your Instagram account. Very active. Lots of posts. Hundreds of thousands of followers. You document your life pretty thoroughly. He held up his phone, showing an image on the screen. This is from June 2021. You at a restaurant in Dubai. Caption, Dinner at Nusser Et, living my best life. The meal I looked up the menu costs about $400 per person. He scrolled to another image. July 2021. You at a resort in the Maldives. Caption, Vacation mode activated. The resort, Soneva Jani, costs $1,500 per night. Minimum 3-night stay. Another image. August 2021. Paris. Louis Vuitton store. Shopping bags visible. Caption, Treating myself. Kennedy set his phone down. Now, Representative, help me understand. You have $70,000 in student debt. That is crushing you. But you are eating $400 dinners, staying at $1,500 a night resorts, and shopping at Louis Vuitton. Omar's face flushed. Those trips were paid for by campaign funds? By Tim Mynette's consulting company? By donors who thought they were supporting your political message? Kennedy's eyebrows raised, because that would be worse. He pulled out a spreadsheet. Let's do some math. Your congressional salary is $174,000 per year. After taxes, you take home about $120,000. Let's be generous and say $130,000. He started writing on a whiteboard. Rent in D.C., you have an apartment in Navy Yard, correct? Yes. Average rent there for a two-bedroom is $3,000 per month. That is $36,000 per year. Student loan payment on $70,000, about $600 per month. Call it $7,000 per year. Food, utilities, transportation, let's say $2,000 per month, $24,000 per year. He tallied it up. That is $67,000 in basic expenses, leaving you with about $63,000 in discretionary income per year. He turned to face her. Ma'am, do you know what the median household income in America is? I know. $70,000. The median American family makes $70,000 total. You have $63,000 in discretionary income. Money left over after all your bills are paid. He let that sink in. So when you talk about struggling with student debt, when you advocate for loan forgiveness, when you say you understand the burden, you are talking about a burden that leaves you with more disposable income than most Americans have in total income. Kennedy pulled out another image, a split screen. On the left, Omar at Nusret in Dubai. On the right, a food bank line in Minneapolis. While you are eating $400 dinners, your constituents are standing in food bank lines. While you are vacationing in the Maldives, they are choosing between rent and medicine. While you are shopping at Louis Vuitton, they are shopping at Goodwill. He pulled out a calculator. Let's calculate how fast you could pay off that student debt if you actually tried. $70,000. If you paid $2,000 per month, which is completely affordable on your salary, you would be debt-free in 3 years, maybe 4, with interest. He set the calculator down. But you don't pay it off. You keep it because it is useful. It makes you sympathetic. It makes you relatable. Look, I have debt just like you, except you have debt by choice. They have debt by necessity. Kennedy pulled out more Instagram posts. Designer clothes, first-class travel, luxury hotels. You are living like a celebrity while crying poverty. And people are supposed to feel sorry for you? He shook his head. Ma'am, I grew up poor, real poor, Louisiana poor. We ate beans and rice because that is all we could afford. My father worked 2 jobs. My mother cleaned houses. We didn't vacation. We didn't eat at restaurants. We certainly didn't shop at Louis Vuitton. His voice hardened. But I don't go around pretending I am still poor. I don't weaponize my past to manipulate sympathy while living in luxury. That would be dishonest. He looked at her directly. You are being dishonest, Representative. You are pretending to struggle when you are actually thriving. You are pretending to understand working-class pain while living an upper-class lifestyle. You are a fraud. Kennedy pulled out one final image, a statement from her student loan servicer. This is your current loan balance, $70,047. But look at the payment history. He pointed at the screen. Minimum payments only. Every month. Minimum. You are not trying to pay it off. You are keeping it alive, keeping it as a political prop. He set it down. You make $174,000 a year. Your husband's company gets $2.8 million from your campaign. You travel first class, stay at luxury resorts, shop at designer stores, and you want taxpayers to forgive your student loans? Kennedy leaned forward. Pay your own damn loans, Representative, like everyone else. The gallery applauded. Even Booker didn't try to object. Kennedy moved to his next section. He pulled out a small blue book, pocket-sized, and worn the kind you carry so much it forms to your shape. Representative Omar, do you know what this is? Omar glanced at it. A book. It is the book, ma'am. The United States Constitution. He held it up to the camera. I carry this everywhere. Keep it in my jacket pocket. Read it regularly, because I took an oath to it. just like you did. He set it on the desk. Do you have a copy? Probably at my office. You probably have one? Kennedy's eyebrows went up. Ma'am, this is the document you swore to support and defend. You took an oath, put your hand on a Bible, said the words, but you probably have a copy somewhere? He shook his head. Let's see how well you know it. We will start simple. First Amendment. What does it say? Omar paused. Freedom of speech. Freedom of religion. Keep going. Freedom of the press. Keep going. Longer pause. I would have to. Freedom of assembly. Freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances. Kennedy recited it. 5 freedoms. You got 3. 60%. That is failing in Louisiana schools. He flipped open the Constitution. Second Amendment. What does it say? The right to bear arms. Full text, please. I don't remember the exact wording. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Kennedy closed the book. You have called the Second Amendment outdated. How can you call something outdated if you don't even know what it says? He pulled out a video clip Omar at a town hall. This is from March 2023. You said, quote, "The Constitution is a living document. We need to reinterpret it for modern times. The Second Amendment made sense when we had muskets. It doesn't make sense now." End quote. Kennedy stopped the video. Ma'am, the Constitution is not a menu. You don't get to pick which amendments you like and ignore the ones you don't. It is a package deal. First Amendment protects your speech. Second Amendment protects gun rights. Fourth, protects against searches. Fifth, protects against self-incrimination, which you might want to invoke soon. He leaned forward. You can't cherry-pick. You don't get to say, I love the First Amendment, but hate the Second. That is not how it works. Kennedy pulled out more video clips. Here you are saying, we need to abolish the Electoral College. Here you are saying the Senate gives too much power to small states. Here you are saying the Supreme Court has too much power and needs to be reformed. He paused each video to let them sink in. You want to change the Electoral College? Change the Senate? Change the Supreme Court? What else? Maybe the presidency? Maybe turn America into something it isn't? He pulled out a quote. June 2020. You tweeted, "Capitalism is a system based on exploitation. We need a new economic model." Tell me, Representative, what new model did you have in mind? Democratic socialism. Socialism? Kennedy cut her off. You can put democratic in front of it. But it is still socialism. Government control of the means of production, redistribution of wealth, central planning. That is what you want. I want a system that works for everyone. We have that. It is called capitalism with a safety net. It has created more wealth, lifted more people out of poverty, and generated more innovation than any system in human history. Kennedy pulled out statistics. Since 1950, global poverty has declined from 60% to less than 10% because of capitalism, because of free markets, because of the system you want to dismantle. He showed charts: global poverty decline, GDP growth, life expectancy increases. All of this happened under capitalism. What has socialism produced? Venezuela, North Korea, Cuba, Soviet Union, mass starvation, economic collapse, dictatorship. Kennedy pulled out photos. Venezuelan supermarkets, empty shelves. This is democratic socialism in action. People eating zoo animals to survive. Inflation so bad, they need wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread. This is what happens when you implement the policies you advocate. He set the photos down. But you don't care about that, do you? Because you aren't the one who will suffer. You will still have your congressional salary, your luxury apartment, your first-class travel. It is the working people, the ones you claim to fight for, who will pay the price. Kennedy pulled out his pocket Constitution again, opening it to a specific page. Article 1, Section 8. Do you know what that is? I would have to look. Congressional powers. Your powers? As a member of Congress, you should know this cold. He started reading. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. That is your job. Taxes and spending, defense and welfare. He looked up. You know what is not in there? Socialism, wealth redistribution, government takeover of industry. None of that is in Article 1. He flipped pages. 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. He closed the book. If it is not in the Constitution, Congress can't do it. That is how federalism works. That is how limited government works. But you want unlimited government. You want federal control of health care, education, energy, wages, housing, everything. Kennedy leaned back. That is not constitutional, ma'am. That is not American. That is authoritarian. He pulled out one final document, a survey. Congressional Research Service did a study, tested members of Congress on constitutional knowledge, basic questions, high school civics level. He showed the results. Average score, 78%. You scored 42%, below failing. The lowest score in Congress. He let that hang in the air. You swore an oath to support and defend a document you don't understand. How is that possible? Omar had no answer. Kennedy moved to his final round. Kennedy's voice dropped, becoming quiet, almost intimate, the most dangerous tone yet. Representative Omar, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. He leaned forward, made eye contact, and didn't break it. When you wake up in the morning, who do you serve? Pause. The room held its breath. I serve my constituents. Not what I asked. Kennedy held up a hand. I asked who you serve. Not your job description, your loyalty, your allegiance, your heart. He stood up, walked around the desk, and stood in front of her, breaking protocol. But nobody stopped him. Because here is what I have seen today. I have seen someone who dismisses 9/11 as some people did something. I have seen someone who may have committed immigration fraud to bring her brother to America. I have seen someone who funnels millions to her husband's company. I have seen someone who traffics in anti-Semitic tropes. I have seen someone who lives in luxury while claiming to struggle. I have seen someone who doesn't know the Constitution she swore to uphold. Each sentence landed like a hammer blow, and I am trying to figure out who that person serves. Is it her constituents? Is it America? Is it the Constitution? Kennedy walked back to his desk, picked up different folders, and held them up one by one. Or is it Somalia? He dropped a folder. Because you told Somali TV, you put Somalia first. Your words. Or is it the Squad? Another folder dropped. Because you vote with them 100% of the time, even when it hurts your district. Or is it progressivism? Another folder. Because you advocate for policies that have failed everywhere they have been tried. Or is it yourself? Final folder. Because you sure do seem to live well while everyone else struggles. He sat down and folded his hands. So, I will ask again. Who do you serve? Representative Omar. Omar's mouth opened and closed. She looked at her lawyer, then back at Kennedy. I serve the people of Minnesota's 5th District. No. Kennedy's voice was flat, hard. You serve yourself. Everything you do, every vote, every statement, every decision is about your brand, your image, your career. You are not a public servant. You are a public performer. He pulled out one final chart. Timeline. Every controversy, every scandal, every headline. Look at this. September 2019. 9 over 11 comments. October 2019. Marriage fraud allegations. February 2020. Campaign finance violations. March 2020. Anti-Semitism controversy. June 2021. Comparing U.S. to Hamas and Taliban. August 2022. More FEC complaints. April 2023. Calling Israel an apartheid state. He traced the timeline with his finger. Every few months, like clockwork, a new controversy. And every time you claim you are being persecuted, victimized, attacked because you are Muslim, because you are a woman, because you are an immigrant. Kennedy looked up, but that isn't why you are being criticized. You are being criticized because you do and say offensive things. And then, when people call you out, you play the victim card. He stood again. Final position, final argument. Representative Omar, I am going to give you one chance. One chance to clear this up. One chance to show America who you really are. He walked around the desk again, standing directly in front of her. I am going to ask you a very simple question. The simplest question I can think of, and I want a direct answer. No elaboration, no qualification, no context. Just yes or no. The room was absolutely silent. Camera shutters, frozen. Gallery holding its breath. Do you love America? Time stopped. Omar's eyes widened. She looked at her lawyer. He was shaking his head. Don't answer. It's a trap. Because it was a trap. The perfect trap. Say yes. And she contradicts every statement she has made about America being oppressive, racist, and imperialist. Say no, and she proves every conservative fear about her loyalty. Dodge, and she proves she can't even say it. Senator, I think that is a complex question that requires. No, Kennedy cut her off. It is the simplest question in the world. I love America. I can say it. Anyone in this room can say it. Can you? Omar looked down at her hands, at the table, anywhere but at Kennedy. I love the promise of America, the ideal of America, but I believe we have work to do too. That is not what I asked. Kennedy's voice was still now. Do you love America? Yes or no? The pause stretched 5 seconds. 10, 15. Omar finally spoke, her voice small and defensive. I love what America can be, but I also recognize that America has committed atrocities, has oppressed people, has. So that is a no. Kennedy said it, putting words to what everyone heard. You don't love America. You love your idea of what America should be, which is something different, something socialist, something not America. He walked back to his desk. In Louisiana, we have an expression, you can't love someone you don't respect, and you can't respect someone you are constantly trying to change into something they are not. He picked up his pocket constitution one final time. This is America, representative, constitutional republic, federalism, limited government, individual liberty, free markets, Judeo-Christian values. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. He held it up. You don't love this. You want to fundamentally transform it, turn it into something else, something better in your view. But in doing that, you destroy what makes America, America. Kennedy set the Constitution down gently. I don't question that you came here as a refugee seeking a better life. I don't question that America gave you opportunities you would never have had in Somalia. I don't question that you have succeeded beyond what most people dream. His voice softened just slightly, but somewhere along the way, you forgot to be grateful. You forgot to appreciate what this country gave you. You forgot that America flawed, imperfect America, saved your life. He pulled out one final photo. Young Ilhan Omar, refugee camp, Somalia, malnourished, frightened, desperate. This was you before America. Look at that photo. Look at what you were. Look at what you could have been if you had stayed. He set it next to a current photo of Omar Congress. Power, influence, luxury. This is you now. Because of America. Because America said yes when you needed refuge. Because America educated you, employed you, elected you. He let the contrast speak. And how do you repay that debt? By attacking America. By undermining America. By advocating for policies that would destroy America. Kennedy sat down. Final position, final words. You asked me earlier if I thought you were above the law. I don't know if you are. But I know you think you are. I know you think your ideology excuses your behavior. Your victim status excuses your contradictions. Your identity excuses your hatred. He gathered his folders and stacked them neatly. But it doesn't. You are subject to the same laws as everyone else. Immigration law, campaign finance law, tax law. The same rules apply. And when you break them, if you broke them, there will be consequences. He looked at the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that this committee refer Representative Omar to the Department of Justice for investigation of potential immigration fraud, campaign finance violations, and tax fraud. I further move that we refer her statements to the House Ethics Committee for review of potential violations of House rules regarding anti-Semitism and conduct unbecoming a member of Congress. The chairman nodded. So moved. All in favor? Aye. From the Republican side. Opposed? Silence from the Democrats. Even Booker didn't vote. He couldn't. The evidence was too damning. Motion carries. Kennedy stood, packed his papers, and looked at Omar one final time. Representative, I genuinely hope you are innocent of the allegations. I hope the investigations clear you. I hope I am wrong. Pause. But I don't think I am. He walked out of the hearing room, never looking back. Behind him, chaos erupted. Reporters shouting questions, photographers surging, Democrats and Republicans screaming at each other, and in the center of it all, Ilhan Omar sat alone at the witness table, staring at nothing. The hearing was over, but the reckoning had just begun. The video clips hit the internet before Kennedy even reached his office. Fox News led with it. Kennedy destroys Omar in explosive hearing. The chyron ran on a loop. The sound bites played every 5 minutes. Tucker Carlson devoted his entire opening monologue to it. Sean Hannity called it the greatest political takedown since the Founding Fathers. CNN tried to spin it. Omar faces harassment in Senate hearing, but even their own analysts looked uncomfortable. One commentator, a former Democratic strategist, admitted on air, "She did not handle that well." MSNBC went full defense. Racist attack on Muslim congresswoman. But the ratings tanked. People were watching Fox. People wanted to see the destruction, not the excuse-making. Twitter erupted. Number DNA test trended number 1. Number Omar resign hit number 2. Number Kennedy for president, which nobody expected, hit number 5. Conservative accounts posted clip after clip. Liberal accounts tried to defend her. Moderates stayed silent. By 5 p.m., the Minnesota Democratic Party issued a statement, carefully worded. Lots of, "We support dialogue, and we believe in due process." Read between the lines. They were distancing themselves, preparing for her to lose her primary. By 6 p.m., a Democratic challenger announced his campaign. Don Samuels, a moderate, former city councilman, African-American, "We need representatives who represent all of us," his announcement video said. Not just one ideology. He raised $500,000 in 4 hours. By 7 p.m., the Justice Department confirmed they had received the referral. No comment on whether they would investigate, but the confirmation alone was devastating. Official federal scrutiny. Career-ending potential. By 8 p.m., the House Ethics Committee announced they would review the matter. Another official investigation. Another threat to her career. By 9 p.m., Nancy Pelosi issued a statement. Another carefully worded masterpiece. Representative Omar has been a valued member of our caucus. We hope these allegations can be quickly resolved. Translation. Please resign before you become a bigger problem. The squad rallied around her. AOC tweeted support. Rashida called it a witch hunt. Ayanna Pressley said it was motivated by bigotry, but their tweets got ratioed hard. Even progressives were uncomfortable defending the indefensible. The next morning, front pages across America told the story. New York Post, The Reckoning, with a photo of Omar looking devastated. Wall Street Journal, Kennedy questions. Omar on fraud allegations. New York Times, hearing highlights. Omar's controversies. Even the Times couldn't fully spin it. Washington Post, Omar faces new scrutiny after contentious hearing. Kennedy gave one interview, Fox News. Brett Baer, prime time. Senator, some are calling this a political hit job. Kennedy smiled, that gentle Louisiana smile. Brett, I just asked questions. She provided the answers. If those answers made her look bad, that isn't my fault. Do you believe she committed crimes? I believe there are serious questions that need serious investigation. That is what we do in the Senate. We ask questions. We refer matters to appropriate authorities. We let the process work. But personally, what do you think? Kennedy paused, looking directly at the camera. I think Representative Omar doesn't love America. I think she loves the idea of remaking America into something it isn't. I think she has used her position to enrich herself while claiming to fight for the poor. I think she has trafficked in anti-Semitism while claiming to fight bigotry. I think she has broken laws while claiming to seek justice. He leaned forward. But most importantly, I think the American people deserve better. They deserve representatives who actually represent them, who actually serve them, who actually love this country. Pause. Representative Omar is not that person. The clip went mega viral, 50 million views in 24 hours, 100 million by the end of the week. Kennedy became a conservative folk hero overnight. Speaking invitations flooded in. Fundraising appeals used his name and image. Stand with Kennedy against Omar raised millions for Republican causes. Omar's poll numbers cratered. In her district, approval dropped from 62% to 48% in 1 week. Disapproval jumped from 31% to 46%. The middle, the persuadables, had shifted decisively against her. Democratic strategists ran focus groups, and the results were devastating. Even progressive voters in her district were uncomfortable. She didn't have good answers. She seemed guilty. I don't know if I trust her anymore. 1 month later, the FEC investigation expanded. Subpoenas were issued, document requests sent. The walls were closing in. 2 months later, the Justice Department opened a preliminary inquiry, immigration fraud. Not a full investigation yet, but one step closer. 3 months later, Don Samuels led her in primary polling, 48% to 44%. A statistical tie, but the momentum was clear. 6 months later, the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board referred her case to state prosecutors. More investigations, more scrutiny, more pressure. Omar tried to fight back with Twitter threads, CNN interviews, and op-eds in progressive publications. But the damage was done. Kennedy had exposed her. The receipts were public. The contradictions were undeniable. The squad tried to rally. Defend Ilhan became a progressive rallying cry, but it wasn't working. Even progressives couldn't defend the indefensible, and through it all, Kennedy kept working. More hearings, more investigations, more questions. Quiet, methodical, devastating. In his office, on his desk, the pocket Constitution sat in a place of honor. Next to it was a framed photo. Young John Kennedy, Louisiana State University Law School graduation. His father's hand on his shoulder, both of them smiling. Under the photo was an inscription. The law is reason, free from passion. Kennedy believed that, lived that, proved that. He had taken down Ilhan Omar with facts, with evidence, with reason, not with passion, not with anger, not with hatred, just with the truth. And the truth, as always, was enough.